fiddle keys. I cannot really play music at the moment due to some neck and shoulder problems, but let's turn this misfortune into something positive by talking about some Scandi folk albums. And this time I would like to present 3 albums and 3 bands that have a bit of a more modern sound. And what I mean by that is that although they are rooted in Scandinavian folk tradition, they kind of explore a bit of different influences. Interestingly, all 3 albums I'm gonna talk about today were recorded by trios, and each one of these trios includes a cello. It was not intentional, but it happened. So if this sounds like something interesting, a bit more modern Scandinavian folk music with cello, let's get on board, shall we? The first album I want to talk about is Nykomlingen by Erlend, Viken trio. In general, I recommend this trio enormously, but this album is maybe the one I've listened to the most. Erlend Viken is a fiddle player from Norway. He plays both usual fiddle and hardanger fiddle, or hardingfele. And this trio of his is with a guitar and with a cello. And both guitar and cello players have changed a little bit throughout the years, but on this particular album the guitars are played by Marius Graff and the cello by Leo Svensson Sander. By guitars here I mean acoustic guitar, but also electric guitar and actually also some banjo. Hulling on banjo might not sound like a thing, but I totally subscribe to it. What I really enjoy about this album and this band in general is that Erlend does not shy away from neither who he is, nor what he likes, nor what he wants to dare to do. So yeah, hulling on banjo, why not? Electric guitar in a folk band, why not? Exploring rhythms and doing a bit atmospheric arrangements, or completely crazy ones at times, or taking a polska and making it something kind of unusual. He dares, he just does the things, but in a very peaceful way. And the cello playing is really like wide and diverse. You have some like percussion on the body of the cello and things like that. As said, well, the guitars and banjo and so on are really interesting. And the fiddle maybe is the most stable thing, but that's maybe also what roots the band into the more folk, Scandinavian folk style that we like. So it's a really nice balance between new things, experiments, and tradition. I also have to say that I've seen them in concert, and they're awesome. And when concerts will be a thing again, I highly recommend that if you get the chance, go see them. They're really, really good. Second album of today, the debut album by trio Törn. This is a young band, and I try to include young and or not so well-known bands in my reviews, but this one has actually been acclaimed a lot in Sweden already. It's 3 young musicians from the Royal Conservatory of Music of Stockholm, whom apparently met there and started this band there. It is Olof Kendemark on fiddle, Petrus Dillner on nyckelharpa, and Klara Källström on cello. And oh my, they have so many ideas. They have so many great ideas about music, about what they could do. Either it's from like a theme, like Petrus in the spaceship, or it's about an unhappy proposal that turned into a non-marriage, or it's just let's write a completely crazy polska. They just take what they feel for and they go into that direction a lot. And I love both the fiddle and the nyckelharpa here. I'm a big admirer of Petrus in general. I think he has very, very good playing on nyckelharpa. But I would say that the one that steals the show here is Klara Källström on cello. She has so many ideas, she does little details of accompaniment right in the right place. You have like a little break from the two melody instruments and she does like a little noise thing on the cello or whatever. I don't know. She really gives the whole band a new depth somehow. And I think that's probably the point of having a cello or a bass instrument in general in a folk band. Instead of just relying on the melody, you explore a little bit more and you have like an underlayer that is a little bit lower and wider, and you can explore things in directions that you are not able to do if you only have melody instruments. I think this band does really great, and I'm really looking forward to a second album of them. Third and last album of this review, Metropol by Nordic. If you have been a little bit in the Swedish folk scene, you know about Nordic. If you don't know about them, well, now you do. You're welcome. They are kind of superstars now on the scene, and it's totally deserved. You have Erik Rydvall on nyckelharpa, who is acclaimed for pretty much all his projects. You have Magnus Zetterlund on mandolin, and you have Anders Löfberg on cello. And I have to say that although I really like the nyckelharpa and the mandolin, I'm quite a fan of Erik Rydvall, as most nyckelharpa players today, but Anders Löfberg's cello for me is the thing that steals the show. And I am fond of Anders playing because he has dabbed into jazz a lot. He has studied, if I remember correctly, double bass, like jazz double bass, and you can hear that in his cello playing. He also plays the fiddle and sings, not in this band though. He has really precise accompaniment lines, very often jazz inspired, very groovy, and he has a lot of chopping. Anders was my discovery of cello groove, cello accompaniment and chopping within folk music, also with Natalie Haas, but she dabs more into Celtic music, whereas Anders Löfberg is more into Scandinavian music, so I'm following him closer than Natalie, although I really love her too. This album is both the most traditional of the three and maybe the least. More traditional because it follows the structures of like folk tunes and folk dances, polska, vals, slang polska, finskogspolsk, quite a bit. Most of these tunes are tunes you can actually dance to, but then the harmonies are very much non-traditional, and as said, the cello lines are very different from like the easy bass lines that you would normally get in folk music when cello is involved. Now I would just like to address shortly the kind of debate that is present in the folk music scene, which is between raw sound and more polished sound. And the type of music that these bands play, which has a kind of cleaner sound, more arranged tunes, and more modern inspirations and influences, is a style that is loved by some and kind of lots of criticized by others. You can sometimes hear, oh, this is too modern, or this is not exactly folk music. And I don't agree. Folk music is really, folk is the people, it's the folk. It's what people make out of music. This kind of music is maybe not really traditional, well, sometimes it's actually traditional tunes arranged in more modern ways. But then again, what is traditional? Is it forcefully old? And does folk music need to be old or old inspired to be actually folk music? I don't think so. I think that folk music evolves, and the fact that chopping, for example, which is a very American stuff, is used more and more in the folk music scene and in modern folk music bands in Sweden, is an interesting thing. It comes from another scene. It's a recent addition to the sounds that you would have in Scandinavian folk music. Is it non-folk though? No, it definitely is folk. It's American folk. But if you take it into the Swedish scene and it becomes loved and played by many, then it's following a path very similar to, for example, polska or other things that are considered very traditionally Swedish. It's just that they came from other countries but much early on in history, and maybe chopping is going to be seen as super traditional in 50 years. Who knows? Back to the type of sound that is more modern, I understand that some people prefer sound that is a little bit more raw and less clean and resembles more the old recordings of old fiddlers. And I personally love them too. But I don't think we should get into an opposition, a fight against the new, against the modern. Folk music evolves. And there is no saying where it's gonna be in some years. And there is also no need to oppose these two approaches. I wish both to coexist in peace, and I wish people to appreciate both the raw, dirty, muddy sound of roots folk music and the modern, polished, crazy arranged sound of groovy folk music, kind of a bit American and or jazz inspired. I love both. Let's love both. Let's not pick a side. Let's refuse to pick a side and just love the music. Talking about likes, don't forget to press the thumbs up button and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. About these 3 albums, I am of course including all links to Bandcamp, Spotify, Facebook pages and so on in the description below, so go check them, go give a listen to each of these CDs and bands, they really deserve it. I am Emelie Waldken, I play, when I can, fiddle and Swedish nyckelharpa, and I make videos about how to play Scandinavian folk music. I teach some tunes, and I discuss some topics around this type of music. If you like my work, please consider supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, both of you and of others. Take care of your body, stretch a lot, and I will see you in the next video. Hej då!